Are up now. Yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. Let me make sure I get this nice and loud over here and stuff. We gotta kind of weird. We gotta talk a little bit this way into the microphone. We got one microphone. In fact, let me just do this real quick. Welcome to the show, everybody. Craig Poster Jardula here and
Fiorella
in person together once again. Dynamic duo, Wonder Twin powers activate, form of a podcast.
Never saw the Wonder Twins before my time.
Make sure you move the microphone closer.
Maybe they don't want to hear me speak. I don't know.
Fam, everybody wants to hear you
I don't
speak.
think so.
Everybody wants to hear
Not
you.
some people.
Why don't you give a little, you get a little in here. It's first of all, let me do this really quickly at the beginning. I want to give this book to you for quite some time. Obviously, with you doing so much work in Russia, but now you're here, obviously in the beautiful Florida sunny skies. I can't hide that, fam. I was on a show and said it from Boca Raton this morning. But our good friend, Natalie Triumphs, you know who you are. We love you. She got this book for you. She left a little note. I've been wanting to give it to you. And I thought it was really nice because recently I did the Third Eye Carnival and I got to see some people. And before I send them some love, I wanted to send you love. But that is from Natalie Triumphs, and you know her name. And that's for you. So any thoughts on that?
Oh, well, Amazon bestseller. Congratulations. That's awesome. And I'm glad it's not political. Or is it? I don't know. It could be. But it's fiction, it seems. So it'll be nice. I used to read a lot of fiction, but all I've been reading is nonfiction now. So
it's funny because the stuff. Let me take this off, by the way. Hold on. Let me. I got my name up there, and your name is not there. How can I do that? Not treating a lady right. Take that off. I'm going to take the display names off. But yes. Anyways, that was from Natalie Triumphs. That's something nice. At the Third Eye Carnival, about a week and change ago, I was able to meet some old school people and get their information and get to hug and thank them. People who followed the Convo couch from the get-go. First off, Fred Edward, love you. Got your my birthday gift. Got some beautiful goat milk soap. So I got that. And I'm going to be mailing you back your what do you call it, touchpad that you left behind. But it was great to see you. Midler, his parrot, was with her. And, you know, like, I'm not crazy about birds. Your bird tried to kill me. Your parents' bird tried to fly through the window after me and Johnny. Scary. But Midler was just amazing. And she was the highlight, I think, of the Cardinal as far as there's all these dogs and one parrot. It was kind of cute. Anna Mares, got to see, remember it was A. Mares for the first year. We didn't know if it was Anthony Mares or Adam Mares, and we just knew it was A. Mares, and then it turned out to be Anna Mares. Got to meet Anna for the first time. Redhead, awesome. A lot of fire. It was great to meet you. Thank you so much. And then Tallulah May, who gave me some mustard, a.k.a. Jerry. So it was kind of cool to meet all these three people. So I got to meet original people from the Convo couch. And to get you this book now that you're here from our good friend, it's just kind of cool that we're sitting together and doing this. I miss us when we were in the same room together when we created the magic. And when we did this during the COVID, was a lot of fun when we were locked in the house because we were in LA, nowhere to go. But it's always good to do this with you in person, even though I still enjoy it when you're in Moscow. But yeah, fam, I'm just I'm feeling a little happy that we're doing the show together today.
Well, thank you, fam, for that long introduction.
Windy.
So, guys, let's just get to it because there's a lot to discuss, and we have our good friend Matt Weinglass who's going to come up after us as a show. Yeah. So I still haven't gotten a clear answer on the mechanism, the internal mechanisms, because Pasta and I are really like sticklers when it comes to what happens in an election, and we did not go to Ecuador. I have not been to Ecuador. I can't vouch for their system, but what I can tell you is the politics and the geopolitics behind it all that I do know. Let's not forget that Julian Assange was a victim of the consequences of the US-backed regime change operations that were ongoing in Ecuador. And that's one of the many reasons that led to his capture. And so when we talk about Ecuador, it is a country that has recently been plagued by an opposition that was currently in power. And Daniel Noboa was the incumbent that took power recently. This is why people were confused about Ecuador, because he didn't serve a full term. He replaced the former president. And now there was an election to elect a new president for Ecuador or re-elect the incumbent. The problem is that there were a lot of things that happened during this entire thing that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many who were there on the ground, screams and reeks and just completely walks like a stolen election by a US-backed candidate, which is Daniel Noboa. So when we get into that, let me just go ahead and bring this up here. Let's see where we are.
You want to read your tweet or no?
Okay, so yeah, I'll start off by reading the tweet. And on the tweet, it says, on the eve of the presidential runoff, Ecuador's U.S. NATO-backed incumbent suspended core constitutional rights and unleashed the military across the country. The next day, he was declared the winner. This was despite all of the exit polls saying that his opponent, Luisa Gonzalez, was actually going to win. And further, she won the first round. So in order for her to have lost support, it would be statistically almost impossible because they had an array of candidates. So they had way more candidates in the beginning, and all of these candidates had endorsed her. So that means that the majority of the supporters would go to her. Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense numerically that she would not only lose, but lose by the 9-point margin that they're claiming. So there's a lot of things there that I can already say off the bat are off in the front of the house aspect of things.
Absolutely. And let's just recap on what elections are sometimes when we talk about Latin American elections, because we often talk about one of the things that makes us an anti-imperialist left, right? It's in the name, or common sense left, or old school left and stuff. We're against empire. We're against the United States going out and taking over these countries, putting in their own leaders for resource extraction, for military sales. In other words, the United States gets their person in there. Those resources are theirs. The IMF then throws these crazy loans on these countries when they can't pay, austerity measures, steal their resources. So this really is just more than on the elections that we always talk about. This is the mechanism in which the United States can have control. And I would say very clearly, after being to Honduras and going and seeing some of these other elections, especially when it comes to the situation of Honduras, where in, I think it was 2021, we were there, maybe. I think it was 4 years ago. Yeah. But there was an election in 2017 in which the OAS, now the OAS or the OAN, it's the same organization, Organization of American States. It's an NGO. They have, these NGOs like USAID and the NED, which are really not going away. Neither is the behavior. They're just kind of getting compartmentalized. And, there's other ways of doing things technocratically now that they don't need, these NGOs so much. But they are pretty much the PR firms for regime change. They justify the reason why, usually saying human rights abuse by Nicolas Maduro, Daniel Ortega, stealing the elections. The OAS and the OAN is the mechanism in which they justify the elections taking place. So and they work completely for the empire. So if there's an election the United States doesn't like the outcome, the OAS or the OAN would usually find a spot in which they would manufacture consent to say, no, this is the reason why we can't accept these election results. But in 2017 in Honduras, the election was so bad that the OAS said we need to redo it. The Trump administration said, no, we're going to keep it. And they let Juan Orlando Hernandez stay there, despite the people of Honduras, despite the OAN saying that they needed another election. So when it comes to Latin America during the Donald Trump administration, he is way more, and I hate to use this term too as well, because I know it's weaponized by the Democrats. It's racism. It really is. They feel that they can do whatever they want because they're brown people. I mean, look what's going on right now with all these deportations. They can ignore the Constitution, where they will not give people due process. And it says inside that Constitution, every person is entitled to due process. Well, they can throw it out of the window because it's Latin America. When you see something like this in Ecuador, now, once again, we weren't there on the ground. And this is why we are so valuable as a team, the Convo Couch. When we go to Latin America, we understand the stories. We understand why there's a collective socialist nation fighting off the empire in most situations. We understand what the people have gone through, the regime change, the CIA, what they've done for so many years. But we can actually justify a country's national sovereignty if we're on the ground looking at the elections, Because if there's an area where it could be cheated, we would be able to say that's the area it could be cheated. If something is going on, if we can prove it's fair, like in Brazil, I'll debate anybody all day long on the legitimacy of that Brazilian election, all day long on that situation. But, that's why it's so important. But when I see something like this, Fiorella, I know we can't really prove it right now, but it seems like the United States doing what the United States does, especially during a Trump administration who is, full of gusanos, Rubio, and all these other guys who don't care. They want all these governments gone, and they'll clearly take away the national sovereignty of Ecuador. And that's what I'm seeing with this right away. I don't have the proof. I don't have the smoking gun because it's not on the ground. But that's everything we're hearing so far. The second round, what Fiorella was talking about, those candidates that didn't win in the second round, the majority have endorsed Luisa Gonzalez. Why didn't she win? There does seem like there's some type of thing going on right now. And it doesn't surprise me that it would happen this way. And the Trump administration will just back who they want. That's how they act. Yeah. They do what they want.
So all of the media has already declared Danielle Noboa the winner. So they're not even, because the Central Election Commission already said it. But clearly the Central Election Commission is already captured essentially by the establishment. Remember, Noboa was part of the establishment, and before him, the former president was also part of the establishment. So you have now several things. But what to me was the most telling was the law that he enacted a day before the election took place, which essentially makes it a crime to protest, to mobilize against, to do anything, because he knew that people would mobilize against him, because he probably knew that they were going to pull something that was going to anger people. So he protected himself by stripping people's constitutional rights away so they couldn't do anything about it, or they will receive the brunt of the military forces in Ecuador. So let's read a little bit about what Luisa Gonzalez of the Citizens Revolution Party, that was the party that she had, and they rejected the election results. They essentially said that they're calling for fraud and are calling for a recount. And basically, she rejected the results, and so did her party. She said that there was an irregular electoral process. And she also highlighted that, and every single time the party, they always have accepted the results, but they said that this time there is something off. And so again, she said today we do not recognize the results. And she made a speech out there in a video where she pretty much said this whole thing. So I just wanted to point that out. And that Noboa had decreed the closure of borders to prevent international observers also from entering the country. So we have seen this happen also in Colombia when people were prevented from coming in. We've seen this be attempted at countries with the enemy government, where the opposition is trying to take place, is trying to replace them, and they have prevented people numerous times.
I gotta say, I'm getting giddy again. My partner here is so smart, right? So know this is going on. Our good friend Terry Matson got picked up in Bogota and deported. His fam's like, we'll go into Cartagena, right? So we go around it and then spend a couple days in Cartagena. While we're there, let's get the nice pool overlooking, on the 13th floor overlooking the ocean, but we'll act like we're tourists. And then we'll go into Bogota from there, because then we're not flying internationally. We're flying within the country. Masterful plan. They were grabbing people. We were all on a list because our good friend Terry had saw that list and said, yeah, pasta, you guys are all on a list. So it's kind of cool that we were able to go around that. That was FAM's brilliant idea.
Well, this was during the election of...
El Duque was, yeah.
Well...
Is it the Duque government, I think it was?
No.
Pedro Gustavo was coming
Gustavo Petro was coming in.
Yeah.
He was being elected. He was up for election. And so the Colombian government was extremely, pro-US, pro-establishment. They did not want election observers. So this is just reminiscent of that. They didn't want election observers there because they knew that election observers would witness a lot of the things that are being claimed by Luisa Gonzalez. So that's a whole part of that as well. And what else is there?
This one right here, Citizen Revolution denounces massive electoral fraud. That's the second article you had in there.
Yeah. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else that was said. Okay. So, after the polls closed on Sunday, the former presidential candidate for Citizens Revolution, his name was Andres Arauz, he denounced that the National Electoral Council, the CNE, that's what it's called, was uploading vote records without signatures. This is boo-boo, a huge boo-boo. You cannot upload any sort of voting records without signatures, because anybody could have done that. And so again, now what we're talking about, what I'm seeing here that they have is that they have one of these machines that prints out, your vote, and then you drop it in somewhere, and it looks like it's that sort of thing, but I'm not entirely sure. But they were, if that is the case, they had the actas or the tally sheets, and they were uploading this stuff up into the system electronically, and obviously, if that is happening without signatures, that nullifies your entire election. That alone, I don't know where these votes are coming from if they don't have a signature. So that's internal already. That's an internal boo-boo that this guy and others have claimed that they have seen. And that just discounts the whole thing.
Yeah. So let me give a little explanation to what we're talking about, because once again, we weren't on the ground. We probably slipped on that one, fam, but we should probably have been to this one because it's really important understanding what the United States would do. In Colombia, every single election for their past 5, 6 elections, they've had to deal with fraud from the establishment, U.S. back. Remember, Colombia is the only Latin American country to be in NATO, right? Like, it literally is. It has NATO status. Why would it need it? But with that being said, the tallies at the actas aren't the official tallies. They have to bring them to a central tabulation, and they have to upload it into that central tabulation. So me and Fiorella were on the ground. We were speaking to the party, the Gustavo Petro's party, and we were there for the first round. And we told them, we said, listen, you are allowed to be at every single acta. Remember when we went the Bernie Sanders campaign, we were like, listen, you guys got to set up exit polls, right? You need to be at every single precinct, making sure you have a count, because exit polls, instead they concentrated on ballot harvesting, getting people to get other people's ballots to hand them in. They were playing offense when they needed to play defense, and that wasn't the case. We told them in Colombia, for the next round, while it goes head-to-head, Gilbert Hernandez versus Gustavo Petro, have at least 2 people at every single acta, right? Every single place they go to, because they have the messes, the tables, because you can get a tally and go into each table. It's open to the public. Me and Fiorella did it. We showed the explanation. Then you'll have every single acta. You'll have the numbers. And if they bring them to central tabulation, they then can't cheat you. They have every single acta there. I don't know if this oppositional party did that, and they didn't maybe do the homework and didn't have their own number and their own count. Therefore, if they do take it over to a centralized machine, they can start uploading votes without signatures and start clustering the thing. I mean, there's so many ways to cheat an election, but I don't know what they did to be able to do that, or they caught them, but that's the thing. If you don't have a lot of international observers in there, especially international observers that know what's going on, you need election activists that know what's going on, that can speak highly for you. I mean, if me and Fiorella were there and we told them get the number from every single acta, and then they're doing something on the other hand, we got them red-handed.
We would have been all over this. We would have been all over this. I mean, it's unfortunate. We have a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and we just can't be everywhere. But I feel terrible we weren't there, because it's so hard to get this kind of information, even from people there. Like, I've been asking, like, give me a breakdown as to exactly what the mechanisms are. What type of machines are used? Are there machines? Where are they being uploaded? How is this whole procedure happening? And unfortunately, a lot of the left doesn't pay attention to that. They just say, well, this person's fascist and this person's a US-backed candidate. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I agree. But we need to logically and pragmatically prove it with evidence. If you don't have evidence, unfortunately, what ends up happening is a lot of the same thing that happened that is attempted in a lot of places with Latin America. You could see how, if, for example, even in Brazil, they tried to do the same thing. They tried to say that the Brazilian election was rigged, but that was coming from the U.S. That was coming from a lot of liars from the U.S. who had never even been to Brazil, and were trying to discount that election. And it just wasn't the case. And we were there, and we were able to say, look, that's not true. Brazil's elections don't even have ballots. They were saying that these ballots were being transported, and so on and so forth. So I do want to move along because we've been here a while, but let's go to the next article that you pointed out, because there's a couple of things I want to highlight. And actually, it was in the pictures. And if you can just scroll down, they list the 6. There we go, right here. So her party, right, Luisa Gonzalez's party, wants an immediate independent investigation into these irregularities. So we're just going to point them out. Inexplicable and selective vote reduction. Thousands of votes for Luisa Gonzalez unjustifiably disappeared during the vote count. There you go. That's clear. While Daniel Noboa registers statistically impossible. Oh, look at the language they're using. Statistically impossible increases in numerous polling stations. Yes. So literally the way we have framed our arguments for years. Manipulation of the official records, dozens of official tally sheets lacking signatures or legal validity, certified exclusively favorable results for Daniel Noboa, violating basic electoral transparency standards, illegal restrictions to prevent visual documentation of fraud. The use of cell phones in polling stations was unlawfully prohibited. So you can usually have them on the outside. What you're not allowed to do is have them pointed in any direct place. And I've seen that in Russia and in Belarus as well. You can have the cell phones. You just can't have them pointed when somebody's voting. Yeah. So
you can't expose a voter. That's it.
But you can have them in there, and the fact that they weren't allowed.
Tally sheets in Colombia. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
If you're not allowed to do that, that's suspicious, right? And they were going to be fined $30,000, up to $30,000 for that. Premature statements by the CNE influence public perception. The president of the National Electoral Council released preliminary results favoring Noboa before the data was officially consolidated, manipulating public perception. We saw this with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. This is what they do. This is, when they're captured. Yeah. Suspicious interruptions and technical failures at key polling sites. I mean, this is just everything we've always seen in a captured election. Unexpected power outages at strategic locations, unjustified early closures of polling stations, and repeated technical failures in electronic transmission. There we go. Electronic transmission facilitated serious alterations in the vote count. If you have electronic transmission and you have a failure in electricity, that is either, if it's not corrected immediately, that means it was done purposely. Yeah. Military intimidation and obstruction of electoral observers. The military should not be there. It should be within a certain amount of distance away. An excessive military presence deliberately hindered the work of independent observers and pollsters. Severely limited transparency in the electoral process, meaning they were probably not allowed to actually observe, which was their job. Official results contradict scientific and statistical evidence. The published results contradict at least a dozen independent polls and internationally recognized statistical models, including those close to former President Guillermo Lasso. RC5 possesses conclusive scientific evidence demonstrating the mathematical impossibility of the official results. I love the language that they're using, actually. Arbitrary last-minute changes in polling locations. Oh, this one we saw for the progressives as well, and throughout just so many elections. Thousands of voters identified with RC5 were affected by sudden and unjustified changes in their designated polling places, resulting in an artificial and statistically impossible drop in turnout among our supporters. Faced with this unprecedented threat to Ecuadorian democracy, we reaffirm our absolute commitment to electoral transparency and to the unwavering defense of the will of the people. So after I just read all this is it would be like death by 1,000 cuts. Yes. Like there's just so many areas where they clearly did things. And they're going to make it look like it was just a disorganized election. These things just happened. This is what they do in the United States. But clearly this wasn't the case. Actually, they use a lot of the terminology that we argued when it came to Donald Trump's 2020.
Mathematically impossible.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why Trump is president now and he wasn't in 2020. And look at the things that are being done right now. You have to look at this. When the establishment wants somebody in there, they will do everything in their power to have them in. And when they want someone out, they will do anything in their power to have someone out. And this is, again, a country that I think this is a win for the, Bukeles, this is definitely a win for Milei. He congratulated Rafael Noboa. So did the Chilean president, neoliberal Gabriel Boric. And so there's just, it's just, it's very clear here.
So just in closing, I don't know if you had another article, but really, really quickly, just to recap what's going on. From what I read right there, we can kind of piece together that, number one, you make it difficult for people to vote. When you have the military intimidation in Latin America, that could be huge. You know what I'm saying? Like people will be afraid, those areas, if they're going to vote for somebody, tell them not to vote, moving polls around, making it impossible for them to go. And they know the areas which are going to be strongholds for the opposition versus the establishment candidate. So they can easily sway it like that. Second part, not allowing them to bring the phone in there. They're making it impossible for the opposition, in this case, trying to regain power, the grassroots candidate, to get an accurate count. By not allowing phones in there, and all you need is a simple cell phone, you can actually get a count. So if they don't allow you to do that, they make it very hard for you to get an accurate count at each octa or polling place, we would call it, or, you know what I'm saying, the tally sheets. They can really cloud it. And it seems like they have the octas, or each polling location. I keep on saying octa, but polling location for the language for people at home. And then they get to transfer it to a central tabulation area. It seems like in between those octas and the central polling locations, that's when the fraud took place, right? Votes for or tally sheets that favored the grassroots. What was her name again? Mrs. Gonzalez kind of disappear. All of a sudden, some placebo ballots for the establishment candidate appear without signatures. They get uploaded. You can't protest. It seems like this is where they were able to do that, but they had the power to do it. They're in control. And like I said, the Trump administration would okay an election like this as long as their people got in power. And if Bukele and Milei are already congratulating Noboa, he's the establishment candidate. That means that Donald Trump is good with it too as well, because Donald Trump, is not a fair election guy. It's just that he got robbed an election, supposedly. Right now, I just believe it's all frigging kabuki theater, because this presidency was set up to have Democrat, Republican to play us, fam. So I wish we were there on the ground. It's a shame we're not there, because we can call this out for what exactly it is.
I just got to end by bringing up Nicolas Maduro, because if Venezuela conducted an election this messy, imagine what the United States said. You know what I mean? Like they managed to conduct some of the best elections in the world. I mean, we've been to Nicaragua and we have seen just how well that election functions. But they've been told that they are cheaters and that they, prevented the opposition from running, that they prevented this. I mean, and Russia has been accused of the same thing. We see this all the time. But look at how messy this election is compared to Venezuela's election, right? And Nicolas Maduro was one of the first to come out and actually speak out against Ecuador's election, denouncing it as a shameful fraud linked to U.S. imperialism. And he just went on to say, basically, that this, it has all of the signs of being a manipulated election. And right now, obviously, the Trump administration is tasked to go after West Asia, the Middle East, and also China, and also Latin America, is what we've been talking about. And so, this is just part of that whole thing.
I just want to say in closing, too, as well, America, Donald Trump's administration, they are imperialist in Latin America, and they're Zionist in the Middle East. That's it. They're no good. They're not any different. They're not better than the other guys. It's the same thing. Fiorella said this from the get-go. I've said this. This is just a continuation. Don't get caught up in the Democrat versus Republican, because, oh my God, the wokeness is gone. But look what's going on. I mean, really, to tell you the truth, I have never seen so much hero worshiping like I saw with Barack Obama. I never thought it would be outdone until the Trump people said, hold my beer. And they just will let this guy get away with anything, including their precious Constitution. They don't care anymore.
Well, they're just as woke, except for the other thing, right? They're just as emotional about it as the other thing. Like now, censorship and all of these things go out the window when it's not your team. And there's just no consistency in these people. So let's just move along to the Bukele scenario, since we're, running on time. But this is part of this whole Latin America focus. Okay, I'm going to start off by saying, fam, and handing it to you. And guys, if you've just tuned in. We're going to talk about Trump Bukele and the international violations, human rights violations that are happening, where prisoners and people are being imprisoned without any sort of due process, which, by the way, even if they're not American, they are entitled to, as people, as human beings, to have some sort of due process. And these people are being placed into a foreign prison, not from their own countries. And there's zero due process. They're just being like captured and taken prisoner there. And Trump and Bukele are acting like this is normal, and this is just not normal. This is very fascistic, and as I've said before, and as I forgot to bring in the video, Caroline, his press secretary, stated, Caroline Leavitt, they are considering sending repeat offenders who are American citizens into these foreign prisons themselves. So even if this is bullshit, like she has reiterated, and so has Trump several times, that they are considering it, they're looking at the law. But even if it's an exaggeration from their part, the fact that it's even put out there is scary. And you should know that whatever happens to these foreigners, and then whatever happens to these people who have green cards, who are residents, then whatever happens is what next happening to us. So that's it.
Yeah, fam, I like to do it. There's a lot of bad people. It'd be cheaper to send them to El Salvador. I like to do it. I don't know if the law is going to permit me to do it, but people who push people into subways and bop old people on the head, homegrown, fam, I like to do it. But I don't know. We'll see. If we can find a way to do it, we'll do it. It's cheaper to do it that way. Cheaper. Fam, all I'm going to do is ask you, I'm going to play this video right now, and I'd like to get your comments on it. I know a lot of people obviously are saying this is hogwash. There's a judge ordered Donald Trump, and the Trump administration admitted they sent him there accidentally. They shouldn't have sent him there. But the kid has had no form of due process. He was picked up outside of a Home Depot. He had the wrong tattoo, according to the Trump administration, so now he's gone. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, so many people stand behind this. For me, I'm more disgusted in seeing some of these people. Of course, the MAGA media, like the Nick Sorters and Benny Johnsons, and I very hardly press to go a show without mentioning their name, because they are the enemy. Right? When you take away what the media is supposed to be, we are the media, they're saying, no, that's dangerous. The fourth estate, or the fourth estate, sorry, Fred Edwards, is there to hold the government accountable. That's our job. That's why some of us have been demonetized and put in the penalty box, because we refuse to play team sports. But that's what this media is meant to be. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, fam. We're going to play this video. You tell me your thoughts. Maybe beforehand, do you think that Bukele was told to say this, or is he just speaking from his own point of view and his own opinion? Hold on.
Okay, let's watch it.
How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah. How can I?
Okay, so first of all,
your thoughts. Was that his own thoughts, or is that Donald Trump telling him beforehand? Hey, just say you can't do it.
Well,
all right, buddy?
He dodged the question, because this guy isn't even. He's saying, "I don't like to release terrorists," but how do you know they're terrorists?
Yeah.
This guy wasn't a terrorist. He was actually falsely accused, and he was taken. Do you know how many people like that now? We have reports that there's so many people who are in that same situation that were just picked up. And I'm telling you all that they are stopping random people and checking their papers. So for all the people that were like anti-COVID, show me your papers, all this stuff, how the hell do you sleep at night being so inconsistent when this is happening to people who are, many of them, American citizens who are just Hispanic or brown, or residents who have a green card and have legal status? But even if it's not to these happening to people with legal papers, you could actually, for example, you could have a legal visa in the United States, and then while the process is happening to get it renewed, you don't have it. And that's happened to many people as well, because there's a process and a procedure that happens, and there's a small window where you don't have those papers. Well, guess what? Those people are being pulled and are being thrown into the gutter as well. So this, again, because I have to point this out, because this is the only way I think some Americans understand this is going to happen to you sooner or later. And for me, it's, the human rights aspect of it all. But if that doesn't do it for you, this is going to happen to you sooner or later, because they have the AI now that they're using to look after anybody who is a pro-Palestine or pro-Hamas protester, who is anti-Israel, who is, they're also looking to make is Israelis the victims again. They're giving them business. What is it? The business deductions. They're giving them all sorts of things. And so when we talk about who is invading the United States and who has more influence in our country, it's clearly not Iran. It's clearly not any Latin American country. It's definitely not communist China. It is definitely Zionist Israel. And the moment you hear anybody saying this in the mainstream media, they'll be completely, entirely just stripped off. And even people in independent media don't say this shit out loud, because they know that some form or another, there's Zionist money is everywhere. Yeah. And again, this goes back to the interlocked connection between our domestic and our foreign policy.
So much of the media during the Democratic administration, if they made it look like it was always right wingers, and they did it on purpose, and they punished them, but they almost kind of like technocratically martyred them in a way, right? Like in a way, they made them look like the victims, and then all of a sudden they were able to bring them back. So people think that freedom of speech is back now because a lot of these conservatives have their channels back. But now it's anybody, that is speaking up against the establishment. The First Amendment it's under attack again. Freedom of the press is under attack again. They're going to silence our voices, but what they're doing more than anything, when you have Elon owning Twitter, he's just promoting all pro-Trump voices. We said this stuff about Tim Cast, and just recently he goes on and gets a meeting with Netanyahu. It's ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. And we are seeing that more Rumble is now demonetizing and taking down stuff, censoring. Johnny Vedmore, I was on with him this morning on Crosstalk, and he had talked about the way they took down 3 of his videos. They don't even tell him, they just took it away. Peter Lavelle had some stuff taken down from Facebook. So anti-imperialist voices, pro-speech voices are now under attack. If you're not pro-Trump, you're under attack. And there's different ways to do it. Like there's different ways to fraudulently steal an election. There's different ways to censor people. You just keep them silent and you promote the voices. You make the pro-Trump voices the loudest in the room. Speaking about Nayib Bukele, what a cock. I'm like really losing respect for this guy every single friggin' day. Never had it, but wow. And Nayib Bukele, Buki. I'm just going to call him Buki, but I miss you already, President T. I love the people of El Salvador, and they have one hell of a president, President Donald J. Trump. Here we go, fam. Oh, my God.
Mr. President, it's an honor to have you. Doing incredibly for your country, and we appreciate working with you because you want to stop crime, and so do we. I want to thank you for the great job you're doing.
I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help. We're a small country, but if we can help, we do it.
We just have had a great relationship, and then I want to just say hello to the people of El Salvador and say they have one hell of a president.
He's a hell of a guy, fam. He's one of us, and he'll take our prisoners, and he'll do it for cheap.
He's taking our prisoners for cheap, so we're gonna
take some Americans. That's what they want him to do next.
Yeah, why not? We need more room for others. We need less money going to the working people. The rich need money. There's a lot of money to be made in the prison system. We all know this. So there you go. Yeah, that's freaking wonderful.
He just says that. He said he won't do it. Won't return the man. There is another article I put over here that's very interesting because that whole thing, fam. Even when you don't do something, just constantly say you are doing it, and people will believe it. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of bringing this kid back, 9-0, 9-0. And look at this right here. Let me bring this up. This is just crazy. Here it is. And I'm going to read the first part of it. Let me add this to the stage. Okay. Trump justified the Supreme Court. What is John Roberts going to do about it? and I just want to read from here. Checking the time. Update. Moments before this was sent to Trump, met with Bukele, right? Buki. Trump reiterated that he had no power to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States. Bukele said he had no intention of returning him. So here's Donald Trump says, well, even though we made a mistake, I can't do it. I have no power. It's the president of El Salvador. And then Nayib comes down and says, well, we can't do that. I can't, we're not going to do that. Pretty much he got the bump from Donald Trump just say you can't send them back. And Trump did something extraordinary. He claimed that the Supreme Court had ruled 9-0 in his favor on the case, that the court's decision meant only that the U.S. government would have to provide a plane if Bukele chose to return Abrego Garcia. So Trump not only refuses to comply with Roberts' ruling, but he has now completely mischaracterized it. What will the Supreme Court do in response? That's the question we're working through today. So let's dig in. Too deep to get into it. They give these all possibilities of what could happen, what should happen. But J.D. Vance and also Marco Rubio reiterated inside that room where Bukele was there meeting with them, is that the president and only the administration, the guy who's holding the seat in the White House, has all the decisions over foreign affairs. And what Donald Trump keeps doing is claiming emergencies for this, claiming emergencies for that. By doing the emergency game, what we saw during the COVID era, you give the state extra powers. He's found a way to give himself more powers. For instance, with Yemen, the reason why he's allowed to bomb them without going to Congress and getting consent is because he used the AUMF, the authorized use of military force, but he was also allowed to designate the Houthis as a terrorist organization. So since he can designate them as a terrorist organization, he doesn't technically have to go back to Congress to get permission to constantly bomb them. I think they had 15 bombing campaigns yesterday. So it's like $1 billion a day to bomb them, and they're going through with it. And Donald Trump is finding all these little loopholes that could be argumented. But right now, he's pretty much telling the Supreme Court, fam, to go scratch.
Yeah. So this is where I come in and I say, this is what the quote unquote deep state wants him to do. The courts and the, I would say, larger context of the Congress don't really have any power anymore, because the presidency is essentially just a representation of what the establishment wants, and the people actually pulling the strings, which are in the intelligence apparatus, which are in the military apparatus. People think that this is all just Trump's doing, but and this is not a defense of Trump. What I am saying is that this is Trump doing what he is tasked to do in his administration. Again, I said it was the most Zionist administration for a reason. It is also, the most anti-immigrant, anti-China administration. And you can argue the good reasons for that and the bad reasons for that. But what we're seeing here is him do exactly what he is tasked to do. There's no deviation between him and Rubio. They're all in line right now. They're actually working very well to achieve what they want to do. And even as we'll talk about the tariffs, as crazy as that seems, that is also right in line with where the focus is going when it comes to Donald Trump. So yeah, I agree with you, but I also think this is exactly what he's tasked to do. So the Supreme Court thing is just, it's just, yeah. They're not going to do anything. No. They're not going to do anything. This is what I'm saying. Like, they're not going to do anything when it comes to this. But this sets a huge precedent, as Pasta was saying.
So I just want to reiterate what Fiorella said that was so important, right? This is not Donald Trump acting by himself. And listen, this is what Bernie Sanders and AOC are going around, saying, oh my God, this is Donald Trump. Hands off our democracy. He's just doing this. He's acting like a dictator. He is, but he's doing this along the steps of the line of what the CIA, the deep state wants him to do, the military-industrial complex wants him to do, AIPAC wants to do. He is a captured person. He's going along with the great acceleration, right? Everything is to move us quicker onto the grid, more track and trace, to modernize the military nowadays. It's all to just, it's a time of acceleration where they're just accelerating and moving us in to another stage of what the empire wants to continue to do, right? And to do so, they got to keep us in two parties, two camps, Democrat, Republican, and they're doing a good job of it. Seeing a lot of people going out and, getting back on the Bernie Sanders bandwagon and the AOC bandwagon, it's a little depressing right now because I thought you'd learn by now that that is not the answer, you know. But it seems like they're pulling it off, fam. And you are absolutely right. Those behind the scene, whatever you want to call them, deep state globalists, they are getting what they want, and they're just using Donald Trump to make sure it happens. I'm going to play this video first with the next section. Is that? Do you have anything else to say? That I'm going to play this video first, and then we're going to work our way backwards because I'm going to throw tariffs on all these countries, especially, you know what country, fam, is going to get the most tariffs?
China.
China. That's right. So listen, there are interesting points of view for tariffs. A lot of people, when they talks about McKinley, the one president who used them, he would make this statement: what do you want, cheaper products or higher wages? I mean, it was really different when tariffs were around. When this guy, I mean, it was just, and they used it to fund the government at that point. But the spirit of a tariff today, what they're trying to say is that we're going to throw tariffs on certain products, so therefore manufacturing will be forced to come back home because it wouldn't pay to use that slave labor over there. However, the Chinese know they're holding all the cards. And remember, there's a meme out there with Xi holding the cards, Trump holding the cards. He goes, "These are the cards I have," and Xi's looking at Trump going, "The cards are made in China, buddy." So they know they got the resources, they got the labor. And here's the thing too, as well. And I keep saying this multipolar world, right? And I know like people, well, that means something. It's a little, devious. But the whole thing is, it's just not a unipolar world where everybody has to do what the United States is doing. Their currency, the global currency. The BRICS nations are formed. They have other customers. China knows that. They don't have to sell. They'd like to sell their products at a high markup to the United States. But, also, it's not even that they're getting stuff at a high markup. It's our oligarchs here, our corporates here that are robbing the people. Not only are they getting the goods made cheap over there, they're robbing us. Check out this video we have right over here. It's going to give you a little explanation about what's going on with China. Really, nothing's really changed. The argument is that, see, Donald Trump has never said he wants to change the system itself, right? What he's saying is that the system has been poorly managed. It was managed by Sleepy Joe. Even this Ukraine war, it's Sleepy Joe's war. They're awful. All these woke people, these DEI people, we're going to come in and we're going to get the right people in there. So we're just going to reform the CIA. We're going to well manage the CIA and the deep state. That's his whole mentality. Watch this video exposing what's really going on.
When it comes to the USA, we have never had the upper hand over China. Let's talk about how China has just executed the longest hustle in modern history. For decades, we have been conditioned to believe that China is just one giant sweatshop pumping out crap while we are the sophisticated, high-end innovators. And it turns out China has just been patiently waiting for us to be completely dependent upon their manufacturers. They have been mastering every technology, absorbing every industry, and then building an empire that doesn't need us half as much as we need them. And just when Trump thought he was going to flex up on China with his tariffs and trade war, they bitch slapped us right back with transparency. People forget that TikTok is owned by China. So it's not a surprise that every other video right now on your FYP is a Chinese person exposing the insane amount of markup that we pay for the products that they make for pennies on the dollar. Luxury handbags that are going for $3,000 to $5,000 in the United States are now being sold directly from manufacturers in China for $100 to $150. Premium skincare and perfumes are repackaged and sold for 10 times the price. China hasn't even had to fight in this trade war. They literally just drop the receipts and let Americans wake up and say, oh my God, we have been duped. China's domestic market is operating faster, more efficiently, better, and cheaper with products and things that we invented, from EVs to AI. They have a high-speed rail system that makes our Amtrak look like a horse-drawn carriage. Their cities are so high-tech and high-end, they put our crumbling infrastructure to absolute shame. So after decades of the U.S. media painting China as some dystopian sweatshop, Americans are waking up. Chinese consumers get better deals than we do. Chinese technology is significantly more advanced than ours. Chinese manufacturing isn't inferior. It's just that the United States chooses to sell us overpriced garbage. So now instead of fearing the Chinese people and that country like we've always been conditioned to, we are now cheering them on while they expose the rot inside of our own system. China didn't destroy American capitalism. They held up a mirror to it and let it destroy itself.
快手拥抱
Let me make one comment. China, TikTok is not owned by China. ByteDance is a Chinese company, but and I would like to say that they're not pushing the algorithm. They let the algorithm organically develop, and that's what gets pushed. And people are seeing that, and they want to see more of what's going on. Why is this happening? Why are they selling us all this stuff over here? You know, they're marking it up that much. They first of all, they take all the factories out of the United States. This is what happened with NAFTA. They go over to China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Indochina. They make these products like crazy. They say they have to do it to be competitive, but then their CEOs are making billions of dollars because they're marking up even the stuff they get from China on us. So they're like, look, who's really screwing you? Is it us or them? Because that's the argument that Trump was trying to push forth is that China is always, they're the ones who are engaging in indecent practices. They're the ones who are manipulating the currency. They are screwing us, and I'm going to get them to stop screwing us. That's the argument, and they're winning this argument because they're saying, look what they're doing to you.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, we get so many things for cheap in the US, and already, like, in comparison to, for example, Russia, like I've talked about the cars there costing, because of sanctions, also costing like 3 to 6 times what they would cost here. So like a Toyota there is like $60,000 in comparison to what it would cost here, just because of the sanctions and stuff that we are promoting. And so we actually get things for fairly cheap in the US. But what this is doing, and I forgot to put in the video, we have the Trump merch being made by the Chinese. Yeah, first I'm gonna mention a couple things.
Look for something while you're
It's funny because I want to show this video later. There's like so much exposure happening right now, and I think a lot of Americans are trying to justify it by saying, well, yeah, but it's not the same product. No, it is. It's the same product. You've just been duped. I mean, for example, the Birkin purses that are between $12,000 and $38,000 or more, depending, and which, by the way, you have to go on a wait list to even get. I don't know who the hell is dumb enough to pay that much for a purse, but you know, there it is. Those purses, this guy literally showed how he makes them. They make them with the same exact materials, and they cost like $1,300, but you're paying for the logo and the brand, and all they do is send that logo. They send that purse to France where they put the logo, and then they said, oh, it's made in France, Hermes Birkin bag. But really, y'all, they make this in China, and they literally save tons and tons of money on labor. So it's who are the the cheap factory making people, the people that do that? It's the United States government. This is why they've outsourced all of our companies abroad, because they know that they will make a profit. The CEOs of these companies will make a higher profit if that is the case. And so we've grown accustomed to literally not making anything except war, except guns and weapons and bombs, and essentially just that's all we export. And so we
do it good,
but we don't
America.
export anything that we really make. And so we've dug our own grave. Yeah. And now, you know, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah. Look, if they could find a way, you know, this is when the libertarians say there's too much red tape. They are right, because in certain ways, they do want to make sure that you can't make products here, right? Like when you realize the markup for Nikes, how ridiculous it is. You could make a sneaker here in the United States, pay good wages, just not sell the product for a crazy amount. And that CEO can make money. He can make like 4 or 5 times what a worker makes. But now they're making 4,000 to 5,000 times more than a worker is. They've been completely greedy. And that's why you see what they're doing on TikTok and Red Note, where that video was posted, is because they just have to show you, like, look, here it is. Now you can say it's capitalism, not capitalism. You can say it's, what's the one that they like to use? Crony capitalism. It's not capitalism, it's crony capitalism, whatever the case may be. I can't ever think of a situation where capitalism won't automatically move into fascism, right? Where the government will control the means of production, they will control the sales, they will control all the products coming in and out. And this is something we have to think about. We were trying to talk about it the other day in another kind of like a circle of it's a quagmire to figure out. And some people would give credit for Donald Trump for trying to get manufacturing back home, but I don't believe he really is.
He's not trying to do that. This is all this is going to be is a transfer of wealth back into the hands of the predator class. Because what happens when the stocks go down? Okay, these people already knew that was happening. They take out their money and then they buy while everybody else loses. And I'm talking about middle America, the average person that maybe has stocks, the average person that has a 401k. Their 401ks have plummeted. The stocks have plummeted. They're the ones, the middle class are the ones that lose the most, along with, everybody else below. If we're talking in a capitalistic terms, the middle class, the lower class, if we're talking about, it in a different perspective, it's all of that. It's the working people, the working class, right? And so these people are the ones that lose the most because the people with money, the billionaires and millionaires that Trump hangs out with, they are able to then not lose their money, buy in bulk, in very cheap, these stocks, and then they'll go back up. And this is how they control the market. And who's going to get rich off of that? Not the regular people that are losing now, but the predator class. And this is a transfer of wealth to that class. Again, he did it before in his last presidency. He's doing it now. Yeah. So
CARES Act, the highest transfer of wealth upstairs. This is the video you have. Can I play this one?
Yeah. So these are this is the Trump merch being made in China. I mean, this is from CGTN. This isn't AI.
I got another word for a Trump supporter. Sucker.
There's little evidence of a trade war at the Jiahao Flag Company in Anhui Province. Workers bustle and sewing machines hum. A current hot seller, blue and white banners declaring the centerpiece of Trump's re-election campaign.
What I'm making here now is the Trump banner. I know that he's the U.S. president. Every day we must produce over 1,000 of this. We already made so many batches of them.
The banners highlight a paradox in China-U.S. relations under the current Trump administration. At about $1 a piece, even the suppliers to the Trump campaign can't resist the low price. The factory also made banners for his 2016 campaign and said its business has been great since then.
Buy American and hire American.
Trump has long railed against Chinese imports and launched a controversial trade strategy this year to punish Beijing. Yet his move is merely making America more expensive. The U.S. Department of Commerce said flax and other textile products will be subject to a 10% levy. One seller said that would be enough to double the price of a Make America Great Again hat to $20 a pop. And his hardline stance towards China could eventually...
I want to note this is from 2020, and things have only gotten worse, right? But guys, I mean, this is the reality. This is the reality. And so there's another video I added I wanted to show, but we can just talk about this first. So China also has pushed back and ordered its airlines to stop accepting the deliveries from the Boeing jets. Okay, and their response has been the U.S. cannot win the support of the people and will end in failure.
Who's that by?
This is from Lin Jian, Chinese foreign minister spokesperson.
Yeah. And fam, this is something else too as well right here. I think
No, that's mine.
That's yours. All right. Do you want to show that? Because I do have one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah. This is we should bring this one in real quick.
Okay. So the Birkin bag is like a lot of them are more than 38,000. Some you can get as low as 12,000. Just the price of a car, right?
Yeah.
For a bag. Okay, so this guy explains what suckers people are. For the record, I don't have one of these bags. So
fam, I'm not getting your Birkin bag for Christmas.
You can get me a Chinese one.
Gotcha.
This Birkin bag at Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One is called Muti from Italy. The second is Weinheim from Germany. And the third is Haas from France. One piece of Togo leather, the same leather as this one, will cost 450 USD. And one piece of the leather is only enough to make one Birkin, okay? The thread. And of course, for Hermes Birkin, the thread is also the best top level. It's called Fiorella Isabel from France. This is actually the Rolls Royce in thread. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. And then the hardware. See, this hardware is called 316 hardware. It's also known as the ocean stainless steel because it can withstand the erosion of seawater. It's the best stainless steel. For one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD. The edge oil. This edge oil is imported from Italy. It's called heat seal edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining, it used lambskin imported from France. For each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And also inside, there is a zipper from Riri brand. And the zipper for one bag is 10 USD. And then the cost of human resource. The French artisans is much more expensive than Chinese artisans. To finish one bag, the human resource cost will be 600 USD. The package, this is not that expensive, it's 10 USD. So now to sum those up, the total cost will be 1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory. But why Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag? That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material, you can just buy from us. Because for our bags, we use exactly the same material, same leather, same hardware, same edge oil. The only difference is one, we don't have the logo, so we don't have to pay so much amount of.
Wow.
So,
No Birkin bag for you, fam.
that's only 1,300 something.
So you want the one from China?
What? It's the same exact quality material.
I get it.
So, so people were very like upset. They're like, yeah, but it's not the same. The real one is made by French people and they come from the heavens and they construct this. And if you still believe that, there's no French people making these bags, guys. I'm sorry.
They have tiers of pixies that are used to make their bags. So listen, this to me is like, this is just when I look at this, fam, because a lot of people were like, okay, you're going to put all these tariffs on China and stuff. What do you think? Well, we can make our own smartphones here at home. And everybody was saying, news, by the way, new smartphones, computers, semiconductors, solar fans, flat panels, TV displays, and other electronic devices and components will be exempt from Donald Trump's 145% tariff on goods from China. CNBC. He automatically, he tuck-tailed and run. He switched this thing. He was going to play tough with them. Remember, but all of a sudden, with no tariffs on smartphones because, we're not going to make that smartphone over here and computers. And he doesn't want that stuff coming back over here. I mean, he wants that stuff for his oligarchs to make crazy amounts of profits for you. So he's already tuck-tail and just changed his whole decision, leaving out smartphones and computers. Oh, they're not part of the tariffs now, fam. So, this administration should be the bait and switch administration, by the way.
Is that all on that section?
That is all on
that section. Let's go towards the last section, which, is kind of sad that I even have to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it for a specific reason, right? Because unfortunately, Pasta, 10 years later, we still have people believing in hopium and pipe dreams and just why are you even talking about these people? These people are irrelevant. So Bernard Sanders drew a massive crowd during his Fighting the Oligarchy tour in Utah. Okay, and they wrote in deep red, Utah. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and former Senate candidate Caroline Gleich also spoke at a packed Huntsman Center on Sunday. So first of all, fight the oligarchy. How the hell has Bernie been fighting the oligarchy in the last 10 years? I want to know.
It's fighting the oligarchy.
Um,
He's capitulated to it the whole time.
Exactly. He's capitulated to the oligarchy since after he capitulated to Hillary Clinton, then Joe Biden, and the entire time, of course, to Zionist Israel. That's who he's been capitulating for the longest time. And in this rally and in multiple rallies, he has been using the whole Israel has the right to defend itself. What are we talking about? When you're captured by the oligarchy, how are you going to fight the oligarchy if you're already a part of it? If you're doing the work, and if you're putting up AOC, she's one of the most disliked people right now in the United States, and not just by Trumpers, but by people who formerly supported her. She's not a popular candidate, and this is all going along, of course, because she is being pushed to run in 2028, right? And I swear, like I want to do everything to just derail her campaign, because I just think she's just I can't stand that woman.
So the thing that's really upsetting to me is that they have nothing really positive to run on. It's still against the fear campaign. You have to stop Donald Trump. It's all about stopping evil. This is our democracy online. This is fascism, and the fascism that they're talking about, not the fact that every single one of those Democratic leaders, whether it be Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, are fascist themselves because they're bought out by high corporate interest, APAC and whatnot. And he's still kind of using the same argument over and over again. You can see what it says here. We're living in the most dangerous moment in modern history of the country. Vermont Independent Sir Bernie Sanders said, explaining why he is crisscrossing the country holding rallies in the early months of a non-election year. I mean, it's really frightening, the fact that it, once again, here, even in these rallies, they can't even hold a pro-peace stance. All the Democrats, including Bernie Sanders, AOC, voted for the war in Ukraine and Russia. Really, they were all for, because of Putin, we got to stop Vladimir Putin. They were all for funding a Banderite Nazi government, right? That was very attached to it. I mean, they have streets in eastern Ukraine, in western Ukraine, named after these Banderites, literally. And we all know, if you know the history of Ukraine, how half of the country is pro-European, but have actual Banderites. In the eastern part, the Donbass, where people say at these rallies, we saw somebody, our friend Abraham put up something about somebody who was a young Democrat in Orange County. And the reason why he was explaining why he's a Democrat, and it's good to be a Democrat, it's the lesser of two evils argument again. We're the ones who are empathetic. We have apathy, is what he said. Really? Did you care when empathy, right? Yeah. Not apathy, empathy. Did I say apathy? Empathetic, right? They're very empathetic to the cause. I said, did they really have empathy when they were funding Nazis to bomb women and children, killing 14,000 of them in the Donbass? They didn't want the war. They were the victims there. Did you care then? Did your government care when Barack Obama was the president? Did he care when he cooed Manuel Zelaya, removing him from that country of Honduras, sending him into chaos, and then backing drug warlords? Did he care? Did the Democrats care when Hillary Clinton had Muammar Gaddafi removed, and now there's a slave trade in that country? Did they care? Were they empathetic then? Did they care when Barack Obama pretty much thrust so much money into AFRICOM, right? The guy who was supposed to be the first black president now is the one who is now leading the main cause for a slave trade in Libya. I mean, there's so many things these guys did. They are neocons across the board. They're just as bad as the Republicans, if not worse. And I mean, Donald Trump even is trying to sell this position where the war in Ukraine is Biden's war. That's what he's kind of now digressed to, right? Remember, I'm going to end it in 24 hours. No, it's Biden's war. But they can do that because every single Democrat, remember Putin cured COVID when they were all waving the Ukrainian flags right out of the COVID situation? They were all for that war. They are neocons in that party. The Democrats can't even hold that position. And it's really a shame because a lot of these Democrat establishment-friendly people who go along with this don't hold the Democrats accountable for what they're doing. They repeat the same nonsense. They got to stop it because it's Putin evil.
Well, and so where was this energy from Bernie during Biden's entire presidency? I mean, where was it? Where were they? They were sitting back pretty. doing absolutely nothing, pointing absolutely at none of the problems that were happening under Biden, at literally the genocide that was happening, that is still happening, by the way, from that Israel's put on Gaza and on Palestinians, which is expanding into the West Bank, which is expanding into Lebanon. They're every day Israel attacks Syria, Lebanon, Gaza. Israel bombs people. Israel and the United States attack Ansarallah, attack Yemen constantly. So, and they threaten Iran with nuclear war and regime change, which is where I think they're going. And so, if every day this is happening, and this was happening long before Donald Trump took office, then where were they? Well, they were nowhere, because they can't say anything against Joe Biden or the Democratic Party, because they're captured. So they need to wait until Boogeyman Trump comes into power so they can finally say, oh yes, now it's a fascist state. Not like a month ago before the Donald Trump took over office, but now that he took over office, now is when we're going to actually start talking about the things we completely ignored. And even then, because look, what we're going to say here is that Sanders has continuously taken the side of Israel. Sure, he'll say it's awful what's happening in Gaza, but it's the same but that allows for the death and genocide and destruction of the Palestinian people. With somebody like Sanders or AOC, nothing would fundamentally change. So let's hear him say it. It's very short.
Israel has a right to defend itself against terrorism. Israel has a right to defend itself against terrorism.
What terrorism?
Israel has a right to defend itself against terrorism.
So we're talking about the
Israel
babies,
has a
the
right
women, the innocent civilians killed. Those are terrorists now. I mean, this is the kind, you know what? This angers me so much more than what, say, Trump or Biden do, because I know that, you know, they're not just, they're flat out, they're more outward about it. With Bernie, he's saying, yes, it's terrible what's happening, but Israel has a right to defend itself from terrorism. It's like you're trying to trick people into thinking you're somehow going to care about Palestinian rights. At least the other two, they tell us flat out they don't give a crap about Palestinian rights. But you're trying to sell that you actually are different than that. And that to me is more nefarious.
Fam, but Hamas. Did you see last week when they asked the Trump administration to as well? I mean, because both sides, Hamas, it's ridiculous. They asked the Trump campaign about that, the 15 paramedics that were killed assassination style, one right after the other. What did the press secretary say? Or it wasn't the press secretary, but the spokesperson for the White House? Hamas, once again, blaming Hamas. Like, wait, Hamas has nothing to do this. It's like we have paramedics that were killed execution style. We have the camera. We have the information, right? 15 people, one by one, paramedics, and you're going to yell about Hamas? It's tiring at this point. And really, it's a shame, too, as well, the way the mainstream media, and this is why independent media is so important, they're just treating it like a third rail. They're not even talking about what's going on in every single day. Death and destruction is going on now, not just in Gaza, not just in Lebanon, not just in Syria, because they've continued to bomb it, now in Yemen. It's death and destruction all over the place. The Trump administration is now, Peter Hegseth was bragging about the $1 trillion budget that the Pentagon's going to get. What happened to Doge? What happened about government efficiency? Where did that go? And you know they're full of you-know-what when right after this is going on, when they're saying, oh, we're going to go to the Pentagon next, Thomas Massie tries to cut the budget and say, let's go back to pre-COVID spending on all this stuff that's going on. And it is a conservative Republican, this is the Republican budget. He's trying to go and cut it. Donald Trump says, let's primary the guy. You know he's full of shit. He really doesn't care about cutting the spending, getting you more money, trying to bring jobs back home. It's all a facade.
What's this video? So I want to put this up to a few things, memes. So this one is really encapsulates it. This is a Star Trek guy. It says
this big and then go back and subscribe to it.
He said the problem with what Bernie and AOC are doing is that they are organizing the masses right back into one of the two capitalist parties that support the oligarchy. And it's just the two parties we have. I mean, yes, they're capitalists, but it's literally the two. It's the uniparty, actually, I would say the uniparty, because they're essentially one. and it's counterproductive. We need to be organizing the masses to fight for a better system than the capitalist oligarchy. What he's saying is we need to organize people outside of that, because you're still doing the same thing. And for me, that includes third parties. And I had this conversation at a recent interview I did that will air tomorrow with the indie crew, where, you know, for me, it's even the third parties aren't doing their job because they're not actually tackling the issue with the elections. They're continuing to participate in these elections, but are not actually tackling the issue that we don't have fair elections. So they're never going to get anywhere either. So I'm not even just criticizing here the oligarchy or the uniparty. I'm going after even the third parties that don't have their shit together.
My friend Marcus will definitely give thumbs up to that. Applejack in the chat will give thumbs up to that, saying stop vote third party. The third parties have been a joke. Green Party, Libertarian Party. I mean, I got, you know, mud on my face for that one. You know, I was wrong. I should have listened to Fiorella and Steve right out of the get-go. I was looking for a different way outside that two-party illusion, but, you know, those are captured parties. You know, they're just pretty much, the Green Party is the Democratic caucus for the Democrats, or, you know, the Libertarians. They're like the Republican version of the Workers' Party on the left. Nothing's going to change. There's no populist message. There's no will to change the election system. There's no will to change the power. They're just going to capitulate back to the two-party system. And it really is a shame. It's sad to see all those people going out there. So, fam, my question to you, put you on the spot, is what are we going to do about it? What do we do about it as independent journalists, what we see going on? Because, you know, I was kind of being very critical of those who were just owning the Democrats all the time, owning the Democrats. Like, look who's coming into power. You need to start holding them accountable, because it is a continuation and is one mechanism. It is a two-party illusion moving forward. But this Kabuki theater we're seeing again, the song remains the same, right? It's the same old script. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to stop this Democratic Party from gaining so much support, and people going out there and supporting Bernie Sanders? I thought he would never be able to draw crowds like this ever again.
Well, I think they have a good PR strategy. I think they're going after Gen Z. This is why I titled it the way I did, because a lot of Gen Z was a lot younger and didn't remember what we went through. This is why I'm bringing back up what I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I want to say one more thing. They said that he said on this tweet, the same Proud Socialist said, all the Bernie and AOC rallies are doing is providing cover for a corporate-controlled Democratic Party that will never serve the working class. This is all it is. They're literally working for the Democratic Party, and they're going to give all your information to the Democratic Party when they cave to it, or when they do exactly as the Democratic establishment wants. Because forget Democrats and forget Republicans. It's the entirety of the national security, military apparatus, intelligence apparatus that exists governing the United States. And so a neoliberal like Harris or Newsom will be anointed, yes, in the 2028 primary, and the party will be and remain an irredeemable institution of corruption. Even if AOC comes in, that's not any better. She's just as bad as Harris. She literally might be worse, I think, actually, because she actually is more manipulative than Harris. Harris is as dumb as a box of rocks, and I think AOC will be much more easily able to manipulate the public. And that, you know, this is controlled opposition. This is very easily viewed controlled opposition. Now, I have to talk about this because it's Twitter. I got on Twitter late, but back in 2000. In 2020, we had already known. I mean, you were more with the Tulsi camp, but I was aware of the corruption within the Sanders campaign, that how captured it was. You had Faiz Shakur, who was worked for Neera Tanden, Center for American Progress, came from that. You had Matt Duss, and then you had also, he worked with Nancy Pelosi as well.
With Neera Tanden too, as well, you know.
And then you had Jeffrey Weaver, who was corrupt. You had a bunch of other people that were corrupt, and Faiz also.
About the cowboy.
What was his name? He's in there.
Rocha.
Rocha.
Right?
Yeah.
Should I go down or?
So I said back in 2020, I outlined exactly how the Bernie Sanders campaign was captured and infiltrated. Read this if you think this Psyop is anything more than that. So, Pasta, this is going to take you back. I don't know if you've seen this. This is going to take you back down memory lane. Look at this. I said the Sanders campaign was primarily run, this is 2020, by high-paid mercenary establishment political consultants. this entire time, it's been difficult sitting on the specific information to protect Bernie and working people in our movement. This is when I still thought Bernie was redeemable. Here are some people relaying their experience, and I go through all of these people. I mean, I go. These are people we don't even talk to anymore, but I go through the whole thing about how different staffers felt mistreated, and how, you know, there was an attempt to shut this down because they didn't want to hurt the Sanders campaign, but it was already captured. I got called so many names. I got told that I was working with the Trump administration, that I was trying to like promote fascism. You know, there were people that worked in the campaign, that they exposed it. But I wanted to point to this. Faiz Shakir, he was an ACU political director, which probably gave him the progressive cred, but he was also senior advisor to U.S. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He was also the new media director and senior advisor to Nancy Pelosi before that. And he also previously worked for Neera Tanden's Center for American Progress, which is an extremely neoliberal organization whatsoever. And so there was just so many things that happened. There was this guy who was in charge of the East LA. Yeah. They all built super PACs. Him and Chuck Roach have built super PACs, and they got rich off of it. They were able to capture everybody's information and just get rich off of it. And that's all they were there for. And yeah, there was it was just entirely captured. And I just went through the whole thing. It kind of takes me back. It's crazy. I haven't looked at this stuff, and it feels like longer than that. And I knew this in 2019, right? We had the feeling in 2019, but we didn't point it out till later. But there's so much more. Look at these people that we haven't talked to in a long time.
I wonder. Let me get this microphone real quick.
1 second.
I wonder where they were at while this was going on in LA. I wonder where Michelle Manos is, where she was at. She worked for the Cornel West, but Cornel West campaign as of late, like that was the last one she worked for. I wonder where Madeline Kelly Merritt, where she is on this whole situation. I wonder where these people stand. You know, I know that you're going to always have the loyalists, the Susie Shannons to the party, no matter what, they'll go along. And you might not know these names we're talking about. Where we're talking about Democratic people, it's kind of weird because those people, that woman I mentioned, her name is Susie Shannon, she would always go along with what the establishment would do. So those people were put in positions of power and responsibility because they would always capitulate to the Democratic Party. They quickly got rid of people like us and said, get the hell out of here. We know that you're going to think for yourself. You're going to call us out for what it is. By the way, let's share that into the, is this, okay, that's up. So read about this, but we're going to share that tweet thread, fam, into the chat so people can go back and look and see the because I remember when you guys were doing this, you guys were holding on to it for a while. Then it was like, okay, we're coming out with everything. We're going to talk about everybody. We're going to expose everybody. We're going to show what's going on. We're going to show the corruption within inside that campaign, not to mention some of the worst election practices. And this is what we had talked about for so long. What's up, Applejack? We had talked about the fact that no grassroots candidate, none of your candidates out here, you guys are here. This is when we had the pipe dream. That's an old school expression. Crackheads is what they would say, that you would have this dream that we're going to go in and change the Democratic Party. Why? Because we have the people on our side. We have the working class. We're going to get our people into power. They never allowed it to happen because they had the whole election system captured. Yeah. And if you don't change that, how are you going to change the power structure? And like my good friend Gloria Guillot says, it doesn't make a difference with all that bullshit. Nothing changes until you change the power structure.
Exactly. And I just want to point something out here about this guy who's right now currently still the advisor to Bernie Sanders, which is why I brought this up. He was extremely happy in November 22 of 2020 when Anthony Blinken was going to likely be Joe Biden's Secretary of State. And he said, solid choice. Leaders around the world will assume that when Blinken speaks, he speaks for Biden. Solid choice. Anthony Blinken as Secretary of State. How that aged like sour milk, didn't it, Fies? It aged like sour milk. I mean, it's just crazy. And you know, I do have to gloat like here for a second. I was right about that, and I am right about a lot of things going forward and a lot of people going forward. So y'all should listen to me a little bit more often, because I mean, when I came out with this, and when we also talked about AOC and expose her. We got so much crap from these people.
Yeah.
We just got told a number of things. Oh, you're going too far. You're going after Sanders. We were among the first people to literally hold him to account. And, you know, there are still people to this day that are trying to say, well, at least they're gating. Now, you know what the shift is? They're gathering so many people. So how can you knock that down? There's a lot of people. We can use those people.
Yeah.
For what?
Well, people are saying I should have listened to you back then. I should have listened to you more often. Keel Jones says, fam, take a victory lap. We're talking about the third party and mud on our face. But the thing they would say to us is that we're mitigating damage. That was the thing we say. We have to mitigate damage. Listen, this is the system. We have to fight within the system, saying we have to stay within the two-party system. And at the end of the day, the empathetic party, right? The party that shows more empathy to foreigners, to immigrants, that shows more empathy to the working class. We have to go along with that. But yet it's just really hocus pocus because the Democratic Party is a corporate party. It can't be a left party. A left party can't be funded by Wall Street. It's got to represent the workers, and it does not. It can't be a neocon party, and it is. And we need to run from it. I don't know what we need to do, but I think we need to start going out to these I don't want to say protest, to these rallies. They're kind of framing it like a protest. Hands off Donald Trump. You know, it's a protest. It's an anti-Trump party. That's not what we need. We need a pro-worker, pro-human party. And I think we're going to have to start going out there and saying, hey, just get away from it. But a lot of people are going to say what to do, right? And, you know, when you talk about these third parties, I look at situations like Ross Perot, who did make an impact. He is a third party, you know. I know it was a long time ago, and the system is ridiculous, but it's going to have to be. I hope that somebody, I don't know. I don't want to start saying some stuff I was about to say. I hope somebody runs independently. But once again, you know, I mean, the thing is, when Applejack has said, you know, my friend the other day, he made a thread, and you have talked about it before. Misty Winston, you know, who I saw under there. What happens if you do exit outside these parties? What do you do? How do you move forth with a mechanism to change power? Because at the end of the day, until we change that power structure, nothing's going to change. And that is a quagmire in itself, fam, to this day. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, because I do believe that we should exit outside these parties. We already gave it a shot. Like you said, the younger generation who doesn't know what's going to go on, what happened last time, we have to educate them, because there's been enough time since then. And they're going to come out and support, right? There was a lot of people who weren't even involved in politics back then that will be involved now, that will be duped into voting for Bernie Sanders. What do we do moving forward is the final question I have for the show today for you, fam.
Well, I think moving forward, we need to stop looking for heroes. You need to stop looking for people to completely simp for, because that's all that Americans do. They look for people to worship. Like, they look at what's happening. I mean, you have a bunch of morons going into space. You have a bunch of people going in debt to go to Coachella. This is the American way. They look for celebrity worship. And unfortunately, that's what AOC and Bernie have turned into. That's what Trump has turned into. That's what any of these figures have turned into. But they don't do anything. They don't actually tackle change from the root cause. You're not going to reform the system. The system is beyond reform. Like, it is very clear to me that if you know anything about history, the United States is an empire in decline. However, so in order to build something from that decline, so once that power cedes, you're going to have others who grab onto it. And what you don't want is bad people to grab onto this vacuum of power that will exist now that the U.S. is falling. You need to have mechanisms and structures laid out there. But you don't get those same mechanisms and structures from within the same type of mentality. You don't go after narcissistic, sociopathic, mentally unstable people who tell you one thing and then do another. You need to not look at heroes. And unfortunately, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to step outside the box, how to reform things. I think I pointed to something recently in an interview as to how other countries have done it, how other countries have been able to build outside of these parties. And they've done it in a way where they've all basically come together and focused on economic issues. And these economic issues have to be the primary thing you're going after. And you have to be extremely educated and organized to do it. We have to organize better than the opposition. The problem is the establishment is much more organized. They're much more united, and they're much more aware and capable monetarily, of course, than everybody else. And until Americans are serious about this, because you know what it is going to take. It's going to take taking control of your government, and that's going to take something that's much more, I would say, than what people are ready for at the moment. You have to be ready for it, right? And because this word has been used so many times, the word revolution, and it has been completely just mischaracterized and completely what Bernie Sanders said, a political revolution, was not a political revolution. It was a political capitulation back into the Democratic Party. Yeah. But what really needs to happen is exactly that, but a real thing, not, fake parties and money capturing false profits and all this crap. It needs to be real. It needs to happen outside of the internet as well, because the internet isn't everything. It's a tool. And that tool is also being captured by technocrats who are manipulating people and the algorithm to favor certain type of thinking that doesn't look at the nuances of things. They want black and white. They want sensationalism. They don't want you to think deeper than what's being put out there in a 5-word tweet. Oh, Putin is the greatest, or Donald Trump is amazing, whatever the hell this is. That's not made for you to think deeply about anything. It's just made for you to have a cheer on somebody or something. And so I think we need a sense of deprogramming, a sense of relearning. And, I'm in my Fiorella Stalin era for the moment, where I do think there's a lot of deprogramming that needs to happen, and a lot of re-education, because clearly we are so badly educated in the US. And I don't think approaching people with, hey, communism is the only thing that works, and that's the only thing that works, is going to hold in the US. But I think approaching people with the issues at hand and the issues that need resolution are going to be the key to getting people together. Because if you recall in the beginning of the Sanders campaign, when he was actually speaking to people, to the masses of people, he got literally everybody from the left to the right on his side, and not genuinely, when that was a real thing. And now all of these people have splintered off, and we're so balkanized, and balkanization works to the advantage of the establishment. They do it to other countries, and they do it to you as well, because the more isolated and balkanized they can get you, the easier it is to capture you. That's essentially how our foreign policy mimics our domestic policy, in essence, when it comes to electoral politics and how it works.
Fam, that's it for the show. We're almost on an hour and 40 minutes. Thank you guys for joining us today. We weren't on Rumble. We'll upload this and put it on Rumble. It's always cool to see us together, back on the same couch or the same table, or the same room at least. I had a fun time. Thanks, fam. You have articles coming out? Do you have anything you want to talk about? Please do so. I would like to remind people that every Wednesday on WBAI New York, thank God to the board members out there who gave me the chance. We love you, board members. You're the best, especially the vice chair. She's amazing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's still one of the funnest things I've ever done. I've always loved doing the Convo couch. I had great opportunities for the last couple of years, obviously going on Jimmy Dore and Kim Iverson, and being able to constantly go on Sputnik when it was around, and RT, and just I was on Crosstalk today. I mean, I love the opportunities that were provided by you guys out there. So many of you in the chat. We're talking about Bernie Sanders. I remember when you were, I don't remember where you were, but I was with my good friend from the Gazette, Ruth, when we were sitting there, and we were in Orange County, and we were talking about the elections, and we were kind of alerting the Bernie Sanders campaign about what was going on and how they were going to be cheated in California. They didn't want to pay attention to us, fam. And like we said, we called it. There were so many different ways to cheat it, and they did. They cheated the people in that election there too as well, and they're going to continue to cheat the people. But you guys that are in the chat today, you guys have provided us so many great opportunities, and we hope we perform for you. And we're going to continue to perform out there. There's a lot of things going on. It's kind of this kind of stagnant moment right now, and we're just trying to exist and stay relevant. And we're going to hope that we get some form of censorship lifted so we can get back out there. But if not, we're going to depend on you guys to help us get to where we got to go. I think we got to continue to get microphones in front of these people, not only the Trump campaign and the people around them, but the Bernie Sanders campaign right now. That's obviously, this is what this is. It's the AOC campaign that he's kicking off, that we have to expose them for who they are. So we're going to continue to do our citizen journalism. So please join me every Wednesday, WBAI. Me and Fee, we normally going to do a Monday and a Friday. We're going to try to go around 12:30. We are on the road traveling a lot, so there's a lot of things going on, so it's hard to do that. But we're gonna rev up the TruthWire, the old school Convo couch. We're gonna apply for remonetization again on YouTube, see what they say. But They want to keep us down. They want to keep us silenced. That's why we've been demonetized for so long, because we're able to bring you the truth and be truth tellers. There's a lot of
Years
things
ahead of time.
you remember we were one of the first on the left
Years ahead of time.
to talk about Epstein, and they sacked us then. Nobody does the election work we do. We one of the few on the left to talk about what's going on with COVID. LOL, with my other show that Gloria Guillot does with the professor, Jeremy Kuzmarov, is always on Pasta to Go. And it also goes on WBAI. Some great guests over there, too, as well. Everything we said that about the COVID, I mean, I know it's not getting a lot of press right now, fam, because we're not locked inside our houses. But everything we said back then, it's coming to fruition, and we're showing the truth. By Pfizer's own data, everything we said about the jab was true. Their own data. So please check out the show, WBAI, the TruthWire. Make sure you go and follow us there. All the links down below to help us. Fam, what do you got coming out there? And say goodbye to our fams out there. And who knows when we'll be together again.
So I have Substack. I have Substack articles coming, as well as I have Vanessa and I are teaming up to do stuff, but we have a new podcast thing coming out this week at some point. And yeah, just look out for my stuff on Fiorella in Moscow. I will be back in Russia soon and doing crazy things there. So yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
So that's it for today, guys. Go over and check out Matt Weinglass, The Homeless Left. They're rocking and rolling right now. I am Pasta Jordula.
I'm Fiorella. Please go over to Matt. He's great.
Yeah. Back together again, fam. Wonder Twins. Activate. Form of a podcast. We're out of here, guys. We'll see you later. Let me get this.